They would take my phone, take my car keys, drain my battery, take my computer. They had installed video cameras inside. We are, in America, that person I was captured. Today, we're going to focus on the second stage of coercive control. It is called capture, which is things like gaslighting, reality distortion, and then this mental and even physical imprisonment. And if you've been in a relationship with someone who's a narcissist or there's any kind of coercive control, then you're going to get this. But yeah, I've personally been through this, y'all. I'm 63. I was a shy, conservative, demure, sweet, white Southern girl in MAGA. And through all these things that's happened in my life, I realized this is just bullshit. I'm a life coach. I help people reclaim their lives after this madness like I did and get strong. All right, grab your notebook. Let's get into it. How does this work? This capture? How does this gaslighting and emotional manipulation happen on the national scene? It starts with this education today. 8 stages of coercive control. Stage 2 of capture is all about coercive control and compliance conditioning. I'm going to use psychological terms because if you can use history, if you can use research, if you could use fact-based things, this helps your critical thinking skills to actually think through what's going on and also teach you how to trust your gut more. Because there's a lot of things that happen and you get this little twinge or your mind glitches for a minute and you don't really know what to do with it. But I want you to get more and more in touch with those feelings so you can stop and say, hey, what's going on? Should I believe this? What I was going to say about this gaslighting for the country is the government takes over news sources, they take over websites, they take over government data, and yet the people are going, this doesn't feel right. Inflation, I think inflation's worse than what they're saying. I think cost of living is higher. I think my wages haven't grown. I think Gen Z is unable to get jobs. It's like people's reality is different than the spin. And I want you to start validating your own experience because you're confused. It says this, but I feel this. Trust your gut more. All right. On this second presidency, it feels like it just happened very quickly. And if you get in these relationships, it can happen very quickly. But even at the beginning of this, it seemed like we didn't know what was going on. And I'm pretty educated. I'm pretty experienced on this. But coercive control does not begin with, okay, now you're a country in authoritarian rule with no rights. It begins with micro concessions. It begins when an authority figure or partner tests a small boundary. They sense resistance. And then they claim that your newly invaded space is the new normal. So Trump starts passing these things and no one to this day is doing anything about it. These people don't have a moral compass. They don't have empathy and they don't have a value system. They're just going to do what they can get away with and they're going to test you. We're going to pull back the curtain on this strategy, y'all. We're going to analyze how high-profile entities use quiet rule changes, leverage, and isolation to force compliance. Then we're going to translate the exact patterns straight into your personal life, your marriage, your workplace, your family, so you can spot the early flags of boundary erosion, identify mental and emotional manipulation, stop making excuses for toxic behavior, and reclaim your personal sovereignty, which is great. Let's go back to stage 1 to set the stage. Stage 1 was love bombing. Stage 1 was baiting. Go back into the other video in this series if you want more on that stage. But it starts always with love bombing. It starts with promises. There's a way to lure people in. You don't start by controlling someone. You have to give someone a bait. Before these people get authority in our lives, they have to get the control over us. And to get control over us, they have to pull us in somehow. This is a love bombing. It's the baiting stage in stage 1. And what they do is they shower you with validation. They build your trust. They know what motivates you. They start with a I'm the only one that understands you kind of thing. You can see this in personal life. You could certainly see it in political campaigns. And then comes the compliance conditioning. Conditioning is a systematic incremental testing and erosion of boundaries, and they hijack your cognitive abilities. That's the hardest part. They hijack your cognitive abilities, your ability to think, and they frame it as they're protecting you. They're helping you. And they also want to teach you something or help you. And they also want you to know they're devoted to you. Sometimes they use your guilt or your good nature. Sometimes they blame you as the victim to confuse you. And it's really obvious in the national scenario as one thing that's really happened is opponent blaming, right? Is like, okay, I'm your savior. They're the problem. And blaming someone else is a very big tactic. And guess what? They are consistent. They will blame you. What you see them doing to other people, they 100% will do it and are doing it to you. They're blaming you behind your back. They seem devoted. They do the same thing. Look for consistencies. What makes us as a human species wired for this kind of control? Human beings are hardwired for social harmony. When someone you trust, respect, or depend on violates a small boundary, your brain doesn't immediately signal emergency. Your brain attempts to resolve cognitive dissonance. You might tell yourself, oh, maybe I misheard them. Maybe it's just a joke, like they say. They're under an immense amount of stress right now. Or this is just the beginning, or these are just different circumstances. It will change. It's not worth causing a major scene over something this small, or because they're more experienced at something, or have more credentials, you defer to them because you just don't know. This was a big one for me. I didn't have a lot of experience coming out of the chute. My parents were uneducated. I wasn't exposed to a lot. And so also, if you're like in strict religious communities, which I was, you aren't given a lot of information about the world. And so in my case, I was easily manipulated because if they had more experience than me, I would defer to them because I just didn't know. And we do this with our political leaders. We don't know. So we're like, okay, you're going to take care of us. We're going to believe you. Big mistake. If there's one thing I can get for you out of this is for you to know you sitting back and being naive is not an option. It is no longer an option. You have to take the time to understand what's going on. You have to take the time to broaden your mind, to learn critical thinking skills, to fact check, to check alternate news sources. You have to become more suspicious. Sorry to burst your bubble, but this is the way it is. I get thinking positively. I get giving people the benefit of the doubt. And it's not either or. And part of getting a better life is changing your circumstances. Radical acceptance is the way out of suffering. Let's really accept what's going on. There are mean people out there. There are people taking advantage of you. So on the society level, we start giving these concessions or making excuses. And this is the point where we start getting captured. This rationalization is the exact second the conditioning takes root. Coercive control does not root in loud, dramatic explosions. It takes root in lots of silent accommodations. Every time you shrink your boundary to preserve peace, you teach the controlling entity precisely how much space they can take from you the next time. Every time you let them get away with it, you give them more power. In my case, I was literally captured. I did not have a choice because I was financially dependent and my mental health was atrocious and I was drinking, which clouded everything. By the way, they loved it when I drank, which is sus because they didn't drink. They would buy me wine all the time. Why do you think that is? They wanted to cloud my thinking. They wanted me not to be able to think. They wanted me to be dependent. Quitting drinking was one of the best things I ever did. There's multitudes of addictions. A lot of people use their addictions because they think my life is miserable. I need to feel better. I'm telling you, you're not going to feel better till your life is better. And the addiction's just going to make it worse. Get sober, that's a whole process. And we can talk about that at some time. But when you stop those addictions, your mind starts to clear up. And I can tell you in my case, the more years I've been sober, the less BS I put up with. It's been fantastic. So my life gets better. But back then, I was easy to control. I didn't have skills. I didn't have education. I was financially dependent. I didn't have mental health. I was so easy to abuse. And so when these boundaries were pushed, I knew they were wrong. I could feel it in my body, but I couldn't do anything about it. I didn't have the authority or the control. They did. You might be asking yourself, how did I get out of that? Because they did capture me literally, mentally, and physically. I couldn't leave. How did I get out of it? And you might be wondering, like, when these people are obviously being controlled, why don't they just get out? Guess what? Half of America voted to be controlled. How do we get out? How do we get out now that we've been captured? Free press has been changed. Executive powers have been increased. There's loyalty tests. Democracy has eroded. Now elections are being challenged. People are being basically put in concentration camps. There's punishment of political dissent. How did I get out of it? In stages 7 and 8, we're going to talk a lot about recovery as individuals and as a nation. And I'm telling you, spoiler alert, it's by watching videos like this. How do we get uncaptured? We don't just walk out one day. It's become too big of a problem for us. They have too much coercive control. We don't just walk out. You get smarter. You start talking to people. You start using your mind. Little by little, you start to trust your gut. You get sober. You build skills. You go back to school. On the national level, you start speaking out in quiet ways. You start gathering support. Eventually, there's going to be laws, elections. I've never seen anything like this in my life because I'm a Texan. I've been around a long time. I remember when Democrats used to be in control in Texas. That was part of me in young conservative Texas, and Republicans used to be Democratic, then it was Republican. Now it's been a long time. Guess what? we're electing a Republican senator, most likely during the midterms. It's an example of how things can change. And when we start recovering from this national thing, it's not going to be one thing. Just like the abuser didn't do one thing. There's all these micro movements that happen all the time that build up. And eventually, the tide turns in a stronger way for us. In Canada, they're actually putting laws in place that protect people from domestic violence tactics that are more in line with what we're talking about today in capture. Now, Texas, I'm going to give like a reverse shout out to Texas. We like keeping white, old, corrupt men in power. That is the name of the game in Texas. All these crazy making things like victim shaming and telling you that you're the crazy one and believing the aggressor. I am sitting here talking about coercive control because I've gone through it. People wake up before it's too late. That's why I'm doing this work again. My hope is that these controlling narcissistic traits that have been rewarded in our culture, in our country, there's an awareness now. I survived and I'm stronger. So you can too. The reason I can come to you with authority about what's happening in this country is because I went through this. There are different flavors of narcissistic personalities, narcissistic abuse. I endured the most extreme end, sadistic, manipulative. So I can see that in this leader very easily. And I'm scared for you. Some of the things that happened to me and some of the things that happen in the stage of capture, where you may not even realize it, are things like they start managing your bank accounts under the banner of financial efficiency. They take over IRS. So there's efficiency there. Or they eavesdrop on your private conversations to help you understand how to work with that person. They monitor your email and phone messages because isn't that what people in love do? Meanwhile, they're erasing theirs or not letting you see theirs. They slowly dictate who you can talk to, claiming your friends don't really care about you. Now let's look at the international or the national equivalent. When an authoritarian regime wants to stop a critic that's already left, that's living in another country, they do something by testing those boundaries too. They will cancel the dissident's passport. They will then reach out to the dissident's family back home, hinting threats at them. The family's business permits might be revoked. And in the case of the dissident, they're measuring if their tactics are working. Does the dissident make noise, or do they quietly comply out of fear for their family? Does the partner set a firm boundary, or do they hand over their passwords to avoid an uncomfortable argument? Guilty. If your response is weak or hesitant, the controller moves that up as a new baseline. Systemic reality distortion. On a large scale, it creates fatigue. And I think this would be the way to describe America today. We're exhausted. Personally, it's exhausting too. Literally, I cannot do anything in my life except manage this stuff. Standing up to incremental norm bending requires a lot of energy and discomfort. They're used to it. It's easy for them. They even like it. For you, it's exhausting. It always feels easier in the short term to give the benefit of the doubt. Imagine you're early in a relationship or starting a new career role. Stage 1, love bombing was great. It felt great. You were excited. You felt seen, valued, or you go to political campaign rallies and the person makes you feel excited, validated, elevated. There's promises. Finally, something's going to happen. Now, stage 2 creeps in. It sounds like, personally, I just don't love the way your sister talks to you. I'm only telling you this because I care about you. I care about your emotional peace. Or, are you really wearing that to the company event? I just want to make sure people respect you. By the way, happened to me is this person would actually hide or throw away my things that made me feel good. And if they're saying things like, "Are you sure that looks good on you?" It could be to capture you, to so you start doubting your judgment, or they just don't want you to be successful. So they keep it from you. How about this one? Why do you need a separate bank account if we're building a future together? Don't you trust me to handle our financial efficiency? Isn't that what long-term married couples do? Yeah, long-term married couples who are reciprocal, vetted, safe, but not these situations. Or, and this happened at the very beginning for me, they make jokes about other people or you to see if you will take their thinly veiled insults. Look at the trap here, y'all. On the surface, the words sound protective or loving or possibly even awkwardly funny, but underneath, there's a subtle demand: adjust your independent behavior and prove your loyalty. If you're lucky enough to get involved with a sadist or narcissist political leader or person, I said that sarcastically, they will test how much you tolerate mean things being said about other people. They'll use victim blaming, or they'll see how you feel about use of force. When you hear those phrases, you do feel this prick of unease. There's a small knot in your gut, but because you want to be a supportive partner or a team player or a compliant citizen, you perform mental gymnastics. They're just looking out for me. It's not worth having a conflict over an outfit or a bank account. Yeah, you just passed their compliance test for compliance conditioning. Next, once you make that initial concession, the tactical accommodation loop accelerates. They track your location on an app, so they don't worry about your drive home. They criticize your spending, not through open debate, but through cold silences and passive aggressive sighs. Another thing I'll tell you that they do is they keep putting more and more work on you. So you're exhausted. So you start to self-censor. You don't wait for them to criticize you anymore. You criticize yourself internally first. I was talking to someone yesterday who, when their controller was mean to them, they would go into this place where they were very hard on themselves. They self-criticized. I did that too. It's because you hear it all the time. It's in your head. You beat yourself up. And then you start accommodating them. You say sorry hundreds of times. You change your schedule. You don't trigger them. The controller doesn't even have to enforce their rules anymore because you've taken over the job of enforcing their rules against yourself. Your boundaries haven't just been crossed, they've been rewired. Brain rewire. You spend hours analyzing their intent. Did they mean to hurt me? But didn't they do that nice thing, or didn't they say that thing? Is my reality true? And if you haven't been given a lot in your relationships before, then you're going to take the breadcrumbs and think there's something and they're not. So Whenever you feel that knot of unease or your brain is like, what's the truth? I want you to do these 3 things. Number 1, write down the event. What rule, standard, or boundary was crossed? Partner demanded access to my location tracking. 2, what was the rationalization on their part or my part? They said it's for my safety when driving late. 3rd step, the concession. What did I actually do? I turned on location sharing to avoid an argument. This is not how relationships work that are healthy. We work together. We have a normal conversation. You give, I give. We hear each other out. No more shrinking to make someone else comfortable with control. If you're in 2nd stage capture, they're going to try to get you to shrink and they're going to try to make themselves bigger. Don't do it. If a workplace manager asks you to bypass an official policy just this once, nope, hold the line and demand written authorization. I was in Uber yesterday and the Uber driver was talking about how she was kind of a badass. And she was talking about how she was at a club and there was a girl who the guy was hitting on her and really forcing her to violate her own boundaries. And the Uber driver's like, girl, you need to tell him no. And she's like, oh, I don't want to hurt his feelings. I don't want to hurt his feelings. I don't want to rock the boat. And we had this conversation about like all these, we're taught to be sweet girls or we feel uncomfortable standing up for ourselves. So you want to learn to be assertive. No matter how uncomfortable it makes you feel, you're going to practice it until it feels better. No, I don't want to do that. They're going to want you to explain yourself so they can manipulate you. Say, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I'm not going to do that. What are you afraid of in saying no? That they're not going to like you? That this unwritten rule or person in your head is going to condemn you because you grew up in a culture where you weren't allowed or you were punished for standing up for yourself? Just say no. You could just say no and walk away. You'll get stronger. Where you feel like this internal strength that they can't push off. You know what you feel and you know what your value systems are. And early on, you could say no. And then on the macro level, do not allow yourself to grow numb when systems test legal or procedural boundaries or like the law. The proof that it's legal is not that they got away with it. The proof that it's legal is the law. People break the law all the time. Does that mean it's legal because they break the law? No. They break the law and then that gets prosecuted or exposed or people don't like them. But don't let your reality be distorted because someone breaks the law and they get away with it. It's okay. Narcissists and abusers in your personal life, they come to you and they've got a plan already. They've been practicing these behaviors and these manipulation tactics since they were walking. And they know how to work systems. I'm throwing up some things right now on the screen that have to do with the 2028 elections, because the headline today is that the House passed the SAVE Act. You can pretty much guarantee anything that's happening in the news cycle has a different purpose. And you have to start using your brain and critical thinking skills to think, what does this really mean? What does the SAVE Act really mean? Well, what's the evidence? Here is a photo of Trump for 2028 and another for the riots in 2021, January. So what's consistent is Trump believes that he should keep going. He doesn't care about the laws or the rules. And he is delusional enough where he absolutely believes that he won. And in this phase 2 of capture, that is what happens. Our loyalties are tested in very small ways by things like, I'm going to tell you a joke about minorities or about women or about this thing. Let's see how you respond. I'm going to test your boundaries. I've watched something very interesting happen in America too. And it is how the government news sources, the White House, for example, there's more. They've taken over, the Trump administration has taken over government entities. He's fired people who don't agree with him, and he's put in power those who will say what he wants them to say. And you boomers out there, I'm talking directly to you because I'm 63. I remember the Cold War. I remember knowing what propaganda was. And yet you boomers are the same ones that are being taken advantage of today with things like Fox News and other news programs with propaganda. Why do you believe that this country is so safe that you wouldn't be propagandized? Oh my goodness. Wait a second. January 6th riots, people were like, oh, wow, what is this madness? And yet, 4 years later, the person who instigated this violence gets elected. I'm a life coach who is all about you getting in touch with who you are and being strong about who you are so no one can control you. It's not okay that people can hurt other people without their consent or through manipulation. Compliance conditioning relies entirely on the stealth mode. It relies on your silence, your good nature, and your willingness to smooth over all the small bumps in the road. That's what the stage 2 is. If this episode names something you've been feeling in your gut, share it with someone who needs this language today. Start talking about it. Send it to a friend, a coworker, or someone who is currently rationalizing their own boundary erosion. Help them. In the next episode, we're going to dive into stage 3, the isolation phase. And I have a lot to say about this because my people were really good at this part. So I know a lot of their tactics. And we're going to get you out of this. We're going to get you healthy. I'm excited for you. So I'm Tami Green. Thanks for listening to Let's Talk. We'll see you next time. All right. Goodbye. Bye. Say bye.
Bye.
See ya.